Hi, folks. Thanks for watching my monologue. As you may have heard, there's been a recent run on guns and ammunition. I just wanted to let you know that Guns Etc. is in a 10,200 square foot building which holds a lot of guns. So Guns Etc. is open and has a lot of product. Or you can go to gunsetc.com. That's gunsetc.com. And if you like my monologue, please subscribe to our channel using 960 The Patriot. Well, welcome back. April 6th, 2020. You've heard me say several times that it's easy to provoke a democracy into overreaction. I was thinking about that in a shopping store parking lot today. We are being tried right now, and in trying times, things can go two ways. Our national soul and spirit can rise or it can fall. It can shine or it can darken. That's why I speak so much about the forces of composition in society and the forces of decomposition. So, we are all right now called to the old virtues as we fight the new virus. Self-discipline, compassion, responsibility, friendship, work, courage, perseverance, honesty, loyalty, kindness, faith. How we doing? Especially since two major forces of composition have been shut, closed. Houses of faith and work. Not good. Almost the first two things to go in any communist darkness, aren't they? Religion and enterprise. So we are being tested, and badly. I saw a man in a car honk and get frustrated at someone crossing the parking lot at that grocery store today. Relax. Everyone's doing their best. I've seen great acts of charity, people giving items, housing, clothing, and other things to others. We all have in us evil and beneficent inclinations. But remember, the easiest thing to be, and as I've learned not be, is to be kind. We also have duties as citizens. I was quoting Aristotle in The Politics the other day on the first duties of a citizen. He wrote in Book 3, the task of citizens is the preservation of the partnership that is their system of government, the preservation of their community. Oh, we all have different jobs to be sure, but that is the main end of our work. He compares it to the sailor. Like the sailor, he writes, the citizen is a member of a community. Now, sailors have different functions. For one of them is a rower, another a pilot, a third a lookout man, a fourth is described by a similar term. And while the precise definition of each individual's virtues applies exclusively to him, there is at the same time a common definition applicable to them all. For they all have a common object, which is the safety in navigation and the destination they are trying to reach. Similarly, one citizen may differ from another, but the salvation of the community is the common business of them all. How to do that? Well, back in a more martial time, General Douglas MacArthur spoke to the cadets at West Point and said the glue was duty, honor, and country. He said, duty, honor, country, those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be. They are your rallying point to build courage when courage seems to fail, to regain faith when there seems to be little cause for faith, to create hope when hope becomes forlorn. Now that's an interesting word, forlorn. Merriam-Webster tells us it means sad and lonely because of isolation or desertion. Isolation, that stopped me. It can also mean miserable. Perhaps you know why so many of us have been worrying about the cure being worse than the disease right now. You shut down our forces of composition, houses of faith, recovery meetings. You tell citizens to be afraid of each other. You stop work. You put masks on them, and you put the fear of God in people if they don't do those things, all the while telling Americans who work some of their work is essential and some not. And you've created what? We unbind all the fabric that holds us together, if I can phrase General MacArthur again, and you end up here. You're almost put in mind of what Paul Harvey said about what would happen when the devil came to America, what the devil would do if he came to America. Remember that old gem? 1965. Do you remember the recipe? First, close the churches. Then educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. He said I'd make TV look worse than movies and then make movies look worse than TV in a vicious cycle that just gets worse and worse. I'd peddle narcotics to whomever I could. I'd sell alcohol to people of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. Then get this. He said, quote, if I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild until, before you knew it, you'd have the drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door." Close quote. 1965. "If I were the devil," he said, "I would take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, and in moral conduct." Close quote. Haunting, no? How quickly did this take place? And how quickly did the fear and panic of the government and media encourage our worst fears? Fears they set in motion by making everything here rotten and a worst-case scenario. Fascists, Hitler's threats, existential threats to our country and Constitution is how they described us and the president who gave us the best economy in our history and started bending the drug abuse curve down and so many other things. But that is why some of us want perspective and truth. Truth and perspective you never hear. As Bill Bennett and I wrote in our column in Real Clear Politics today, do you know the odds of any American getting this virus? One would think that the number is easily known or available. It's not. A lot of digging into various municipal data portals reveals, based on the population tested, that rates can vary from, at most, 0.8% in New York City to 0.02% in Phoenix. Did you know the chances of recovery from the coronavirus are about 98% if you catch it? Did you know there are models showing 50% of the population may have already had it, never known they had it, and recovered? Again, one would think this data would be widely available and promulgated, but it isn't. What is presented widely are numbers and warnings that scare and frighten the hell out of us, and we are now being conditioned to a lot of panic and speculation. But part of the reason we are getting conditioned to a lot of panic is because of the wide range of speculation about other numbers we accept as our new fright-induced reality, an increasingly confusing and frenzied set of numbers. And the normalization of our panic is having dire consequences and augurs for even worse. Let me give you a few more numbers. Thanks to my producer, Bill, over here, who helped Dr. Bennett and I crunch these numbers this morning. As an American, based on what we know from the tested population, you have at most 0.1% of getting COVID-19. Out of any million Americans, 20 will die from it. Of course, those numbers increase and decrease depending on where you live. If New York, higher. If Phoenix, as we said, 0.02%. 157,000 Americans die here every month from heart disease, cancer, drug overdoses, and other similar things. Here, for the 10,720 that have died in coronavirus, we closed the country. All of them, almost all of them, had underlying conditions. Now think about this. Who will closing this country down affect the most? The elderly, who depend on retirement accounts, those near retirement who depend on retirement accounts, and low-wage earners in this country. I, for one, am sick of watching people on television with $1 million and $2 million and $3 million plus annual contracts, and people like Bill Gates telling us we have to further clamp down in our society, that we need a nationwide shutdown for 10 weeks perhaps, or more. Perhaps such pushing, such coercion has its merits in saving some lives, but it will take more. It will take more lives and kill the heart and soul of our country, which is dependent on the economic engine of the rest of us. The consequences of what this country is putting itself through simply cannot be understated. They are affecting the low-skilled and blue-collar workers the hardest, and the solutions the federal and state governments have ordered for the problems they have created, from stimulus checks to loans to abatements and reprieves, they are already causing bureaucratic confusion, claims of unfairness, delays, and pitting Americans against each other. And now there is no end in sight for even more massive and unprecedented spending. You can, of course, immure a country to death, just as you can inure it to paranoia and fear. Destroy the virtues, it isn't hard, and then get what I just read in Axios. Get this. Substance abuse, a lack of physical stimulation, and unhealthy diets are beginning to take a toll on Americans. Alcohol sales were up 55% in the week ending March 21st, according to Nielsen, which measures media as well as consumer markets. Spirits were up 75%, followed by wine up 66% and beer 42%. Online alcohol sales up 243%. Marijuana sales are soaring in places across the country where it is legal, although some businesses have been caught flat-footed by the demand. Demand outrunning consumption. Demand outrunning supply. Porn consumption is up. According to the website Pornhub, traffic from the U.S. was up 6.4%. People are eating more, and they're exercising less. While many workouts have moved online, to be sure, some are finding it difficult to get into a good workout routine at home or to find the time to do so while balancing work and child care duties. We aren't amusing ourselves to death anymore. As the great sociologist once put it, we are destroying ourselves to death. This is what happens when societies get used to pandemonium. As bad as the coronavirus is, and it is bad, unless we arrest the frenzy and panic-mongering, we should be prepared for things much worse than the virus. I'm Seth Leibson. We'll be right back.